Hi guys, John from LookSmart Home Inspections right here in New Jersey. And I want to talk to you guys today about how I approach looking at a house or inspecting a home. In other words, what's on my mind, sort of front burner stuff when I pull up to a house and I'm sort of running through my mental checklist, regarding a home inspection that I'm just about, to do. So, what are some of the things that are number one on my sort of list or on my radar for really every house that I inspect? So some of I just want to go over some of those things. Maybe you'll find it helpful, as you look for a home inspector, or maybe you can kind of, get a more of a feel for what a home inspector's thought process is, here in New Jersey. And the first thing, absolutely, I look for is on the outside of the house, and that is drainage, and grading around the exterior of the home. Now, we harp on this all the time. I have a lot of videos about this, but grading around the exterior of the house is super, super important. We want to make sure that our water controls outside of the home are absolutely good, and that we're directing water from the roof away from the house, that we're directing water away from the foundation, that house is not sitting too low, that we don't have a really sloping grade diving down into the structure of the house where that water is going to collect close to the foundation. We want to make sure that our driveway is not going to drive water to the structure of the house. Patios, walkways, same things. We're checking our gutters, our downspouts, sloping, pitching. There's everything in that water control sort of system makes sense. That's the first thing on my mind when I get to a house is, how is this house going to direct water away? And that's crucially important because everybody wants a dry basement, and most of our water issues in crawl space and basements are 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 caused by poor water controls on the outside of this home. So site grading and drainage are totally important. And where is that water going to end up? Super, super important to prevent these issues from happening. The next thing I'm looking at on the outside of the home is foundation, right? So we're doing our tour of the outside. I'm taking notes. I'm making mental notes about what's going on here. And I'm looking for any type of foundation displacement, cracking, and movement. Now, it's true that we're not going to find a great deal of foundation issues on the outside of the home. Most of those are apparent easily inside of the house, or more apparent. But on the outside, you can definitely get some clues, and we're trying to decipher the cracking, any kind of foundation movement, differential movement. What's happening with this foundation? Does the foundation look sound? Is it problematic? Do I see problems here that I need to make sure that I try to evaluate further when I go into the home? So always looking foundationally, structurally, making sure that everything looks good on the outside of this home. And that's kind of a big deal. We never want to have foundation problems, for sure. On the outside of the home too, I'm assessing the roof, right? Roof is always on my mind. And the roof is on my mind because the roof is on your mind, right? I never had a client, not, I don't think ever, tell me, don't worry about the roof. We're not worried about the roof, unless the roof is new, right? Unless it's a new roof. But if we don't know the roof age and there's questions about the roof, everybody's worried about the roof, every single person. So, that's another thing that's really on my mind is the age of the roof, what the type and materials are of the roof. How does the roof look? Do we have problematic areas of the roof? Do we have an old roof, sort of a roof that's sort of medium term? What am I going to say about this roof? What is this roof telling me? And I'm usually, thinking about how this roof can also affect obtaining homeowners insurance coverage, for my client as well. It's just not, accepting an old roof. We have to deal with, insurance companies that are very, very conservative now, especially in New Jersey, because they're very, They're not really willing to pay claims anymore. So they want to see a roof that's new or newer anyway. They don't want to see an old roof anymore. So the roof structure, type and materials, also very, very important. Do we have a low slope roof, steep pitched roof? Does the roof covering, is it homogeneous? Does it make sense? Is it, what type of roof it is? All very, very super important. The next thing I'm probably going to look at, and this is out of order. This is not every aspect of the outside, but on my mind is the chimney. What kind of chimney do we have? Do we have a factory built chimney? Do we have a masonry chimney? Do we have a brick chimney? Do we have a CMU chimney? What kind of chimney am I looking at? And what is the purpose of that chimney? So am I looking at a chimney that just vents the heating, boiler, water heater, and furnace? Maybe. Am I looking at a fireplace chimney? Or am I looking at a house with multiple chimneys? And I want to make sure chimneys are expensive, and we want to make sure those chimneys are in good condition. So chimneys are also very, very important. I'm going to be looking closely at any type of chimney issues inside, outside of that home. It's very, very important. So super important. Also, flashing details are super important, because anywhere where a structure, the roof meets another structure, or the chimney protrudes the roof, we have any type of penetrations, that is an area where water leakage can happen. So we're certainly looking for any type of flashing deficiencies. That's also on my mind, of course, is to look at the flashing deficiencies inside the house. I'm also looking for, in the winter, any areas of ice damming potential. So especially if conditions are right for ice damming, I'm looking to see if we have any ice damming or any evidence of ice damming. Ice damming can create a whole havoc in a whole bunch of problems inside a home. These icicles, they look pretty on the outside of the house. They're not. They cause problems, right? So just the other day, I was doing a townhouse, believe it or not. Lots of ice damming on the front of this house. And it was raining in the living room due to this ice damming. So we're also thinking about how this house is going to perform, in the winter, when we have that cold snap, and then we have that warming, and then we have that refreezing at the roof edges. Super important is to try to determine what's happening with this house as far as ice damming. The next thing I'm going to do is we're going to look at the garage. The garage is usually pretty straightforward. There's a bunch of things that I'm going to be looking at in there, but the next thing on my mind is the basement or the crawl space, and this is where the problems are going to be. Basements, crawl spaces, they are the problematic areas typically. This is where most of the home inspection is done, and this is where the home inspector really earns their money. But in a basement, I'm looking for water again, and water is always on my mind. Looking for water stains everywhere. I'm looking for, do we have a basement carpeting? Am I able to pull up a corner or two of that carpeting, even though it says that we don't have to? I do that. I want to try to do that. Do we have any issues down here as far as, basement water infiltration? Super, super important. Also on my mind is termite activity, insect activity. So I'll be doing a proper WDI inspection, a wood destroying insect or organism inspection. Be looking for termites and carpenter ants, powder post beetles. Any type of wood destroying insect activity is on my mind, and also on the mind of New Jersey home inspectors as well. It's super important to understand if the home is being attacked and the structure is being attacked by wood destroying insects. So that's super important. I'm also going to look for any type of musty odors. I'm going to smell the air in the basement, and I'm going to try to determine, do I have a musty odor? Does it smell like mold? What is going on in this basement? I'm going to try to piece that together and tell us a story. Do I have water seepage evidence through the foundation walls? Do I see that? Do I have efflorescence on that basement foundation wall, which is a telltale sign of also moisture or water penetration into the basement space. Is there a crawl space that I don't know about? As home inspectors here in New Jersey, we're always concerned about spaces that we cannot see or get access to or thoroughly inspect. So sometimes you go into a home and you have a basement, and then there's an addition on the back of the house, and under that addition is a crawl space, and no one knows how to get in it. I can't get in it. I can't find any access. So those inaccessible crawl spaces will absolutely keep you up at night because we can't see anything. So a home inspector here in New Jersey is always going to try to assess, and this is always on my mind too, what do I have under this house? Am I able to see all of the areas under this house, or do I have a slab area on a portion of this house? Do I have a partial basement, and do I have a crawl space? What actually do I have? So that is crucially important and always on my mind also, because I want to make sure that we're looking at all of the areas under the house if they're accessible, obviously if we can get to them. Super important. The next thing we're looking at inside the structure of the house is in the basement, if it's unfinished, is structure. How does this structure look? What kind of beam do I have? How is that beam supported? Does that make sense? Do I have a beam that's in good condition? Do I have joists that are in good condition? Does the structure tie out well? How does the sill plate look? How does the box plate look? What overall picture is the structure in this basement telling me? And so that's always on our mind too as home inspectors here in New Jersey. These are big ticket stuff, big ticket items. We always want to make sure that we understand the structure inside the basement. And as we go through the house, we're going to be looking for uneven flooring, movement of the movement of the floors in the house, walls and ceilings, that type of thing. We're going to be looking at load path and also trying to figure out if walls have been removed. Is that problematic? Does that make sense that if a wall's been removed, is that a structural wall or not? I know this kind of falls into the topic of engineering, but good home inspectors here in New Jersey are going to have some understanding of load path and how structures work, and how do we bring that those loads down to structure in the basement, to the footings and the columns. And yes, this is engineering. I am not an engineer, but I do know, after all these years of inspecting homes, I do know a thing or two about how houses are supposed to look and be built and have the proper load paths. So that's one thing that's always on my mind, is that does the structure make sense for the era of the home? What am I actually looking at, and give my client any feedback regarding any structural deficiencies that I have. Regarding structural deficiencies, another thing always on my mind, if I can see it, is the foundation walls, interior foundation walls, especially subterranean. And we're going to be looking for that cracking in the foundation wall. Vertical cracking, more normal, not usually a problem. Horizontal cracking, more of a problem. Sometimes with displacement can indicate soil pressure, hydrostatic pressure against the foundation. A lot of things we're going to be looking for foundationally in a home, because that is on our mind. That is a big ticket item. With the structure goes the foundation. If you need foundation repairs, that's just not replacing a light fixture. That is big dollars. And so we're, as home inspectors here in New Jersey, we're paying especially attention to these big items, sort of these material defect items that are going to really affect the amount of money that the home is worth. So that's super important. Also, electrical deficiencies are on my mind all the time. We're looking throughout the house for electrical deficiencies, and I'm doing that. It's on tip of my mind because electrical can cause hazards, right? So fire hazards and electric shock hazards, obviously a big deal. So we're looking for amateur wiring, we're looking for old wiring, we're looking for improper splicing, bad junction boxes, open wires, live wires. How does the electrical panel box look? The wiring inside the panel box, kind of soup to nuts on the electrical side of things. that we can see. Obviously, if there's electrical, obviously there's going to be electrical inside walls and ceilings that we are not going to be able to see. But the electrical that we can see as home inspectors here in New Jersey, that is a real important aspect. And also on the top of my mind is, what is this electrical system? How does it look? Is it old? Is it functioning? Is it safe? What do I have to tell my client about this electrical system? And, be looking for old knob and tube wiring if it's an older home. If it's a 1970s house, late 1960s, we're going to be looking for aluminum wiring too. All of these major defects, we're going to be looking at the electrical panel box, making sure that that is not one of the panel boxes that are recalled and somewhat problematic. There's a few of those. I won't get into all that today, but there's a lot of things that home inspectors here in New Jersey are going to be looking for as far as electrical and electrical safety inside the home. So that's also, crucially important. The next thing we're going to be looking for on my mind is plumbing. How does this plumbing look in this house? What kind of piping do I have in this house? Do I have PEX piping? Do I have CPVC, plastic piping, which I don't particularly like? Do I have copper piping? What kind of piping, and how does that piping look? And also, how does my waste piping under the sinks and faucets and anything that I can see as far as the waste piping, and in an unfinished basement, I can certainly see more. How does that look? Do I have compromised older piping? Do I have any galvanized piping, which is old and obsolete? Do I have copper? Do I have a mix of copper and PEX? What is actually this water supply piping? How does it look? Full evaluation of that. That's always on my mind. We never want to have, flooding or leakage in a home, which we can cause a whole host of problems. It gets back to our water. Water is the enemy number one. And this is not obviously groundwater. This is water supply piping problems. And that can equally be as problematic left unchecked for sure. The next thing I'm going to be doing is looking at the sewer lines and any visible, sewer, any visible waste piping in a home that I can see. We're looking for, especially if it's an old home, we're looking for that old cast waste piping that's cracked, rusted, damaged, rusted out. Big, problems. We want to definitely change that to PVC if we see any of that older cast iron that is in really poor condition inside the home. I also focus on sewer line inspections. I do them. Not every home inspector does them. I do them because it's important for my client to understand the condition of the sewer line below ground. I can't see it any other way. If we don't have a sewer line inspection done on the home inspection, we are just guessing that the sewer line is in good condition. And it's too expensive to guess. The cost of a sewer line inspection versus the cost of a sewer line, it's not even on the same plane. It's minuscule compared to what you will pay to replace a sewer line. So don't neglect your sewer line inspection. Sewer line is always on my mind. I've seen it too many times where we go into a home, we do a sewer line inspection, there's tree roots, there's displacement, there's water retention, there's cracking, there's damage. We have super old sewer lines, a lot of scale buildup, closed pipes almost, roots that are almost taking up the entire interior of the piping. Lots and lots of problems can take place with sewer lines. Always on my mind, for sure. As we go up through through the house, always on my mind is water, looking for any kind of water staining on the interior of this house. Water staining is a red flag. I want to know about all water staining inside the home. During the home inspection, I'll probably be using an IR camera to just scan the walls. I'm looking for pockets or any issues that I see that are anomalous as far as water staining on the ceilings, especially under the kitchen and especially under the bathrooms, right? We want to use our IR camera just to scan that after water's run, just to determine if we have any sort of these red flag type issues. Water staining, always on my mind. Another thing that's always on my mind is interior cracking. Some cracking, normal. and expected. Every house settles, moves, shrinks. Building materials, they're live. They do things over time. However, a good home inspector here in New Jersey is going to be looking for abnormal cracking. And, that cracking, after a while, doing this 25 years, you kind of get a sense of what's significant and what's not. Not every crack in a house is significant. Some are and some are not. So I'm looking always for movement of the structure abnormally, right? Is this problem going to be a long-term issue for my client? Is it going to be expensive to fix? Or am I just looking at normal household settlement through the years? Very important, somewhat nuanced. That's why a really dedicated and long-term somebody who's been in the business for a long time can really assess that easily and not call for an engineer to look at everything every 5 minutes. I won't go into that, but one of the things that I don't like is when home inspectors tell a client to evaluate or get something further evaluated, no matter what it is. It can be anything in a house. They call for further evaluation. It's stupid. It's unprofessional. And what are you hiring us for? So my advice to other home inspectors is just don't do that unless it's absolutely necessary, where we need to bring in an architect, where we need to bring in an engineer, we need to bring in an electrical contractor, for a further evaluation. 99% of the time, we don't need that, in my opinion anyway. I'm also looking on my mind is the attic. So next to the basement and the outside, the attic in my mind is the next sort of hot button problem where issues can be in a home. So up in this attic, in my mind, I'm looking for water staining, right? Always water. I'm looking for mold in the attic. I'm looking for how is the ventilation system in the attic? How is the insulation in the attic? And how is the structure in the attic? All of those things really first and foremost on my mind, because those things are really, really important. So we're doing a thorough, absolute check of the attic space. The attic space, as a home inspector here in New Jersey, I'm always thinking about outside, basement, attic. Those three things are really, those three areas of the house are super, super important. I'm also looking, when I do a home inspection, it's on my mind, is how especially HVAC is laid out. I find numerous problems with HVAC equipment, undersized, poorly laid out, not enough returns, all just poorly operational. And so that is on my mind too, is that I don't want my client then to be uncomfortable in the house that they're thinking about buying. They should, if at all possible, they should know about those HVAC problems up front, And also along those lines, I'm always thinking about how old the equipment is in the home. How old a boiler do I have? How old a furnace? How old a water heater do I have? Do I have more life left in that equipment? That's super important. I don't know what other home inspectors do here, but I always date the equipment if I can. Some equipment you just can't, and there's no information available. But I would say 90% of the time, a good home inspector here in New Jersey can figure out how old that equipment is. And I think that's important to tell our client versus, how old that equipment is versus the anticipated statistical life expectancy of that. Say we're looking at a boiler. So give that client that information. That's on my mind also, for sure. And, as a home inspector, I'm looking for safety issues, right? Safety issues are on my mind. And this can be like handrails and guardrails, and how are steps configured, right? How are walkways? How are decks configured, right? How are decks supported? Are they safe? Always, good home inspector is going to have safety of our client and their family on their mind. So also doing a thorough safety check of all of those items in a house, and crucially important to check those guardrails and handrails inside and outside a home for sure. Definitely important. Another thing I'm looking for, and I'm not really looking for this, but I'm cognizant of it. Do I think that permits were obtained for this work in this house that I'm looking at? So if we have a new kitchen, bathroom, we have a finished basement, new electrical, do I think this work is amateur work done by a handyman or homeowner? And there, let me tell you, there's nothing wrong with people who want to do their own work. I do my own work too. But there's a way to do it that's safe and that meets requirements. So we're always looking to see if we have any kind of amateur type work that's going to cause our clients problems, later on as they move and live in the home. So certainly, very important. Always, thinking radon is on my mind too as a home inspector, and I know that a lot of our clients have confusion about radon. They think it's sort of a huge thing if we find radon in a house, and it's not that huge. You don't have to not buy the house because there is over 4 picocuries per liter of air radon in a home. If it comes back at 6, listen, it's going to be okay. You install a sub-slab depressurization system in the home, simple radon mitigation system, super effective. They're not overly expensive. So there's no need to walk on a house as if you have high levels of radon. But as clients, to get all wrapped up, some of them into high levels of radon, thinking that they're going to get cancer for sure. And that's really not the case. We check for radon here in New Jersey. There's pockets of radon, and it is true that there's a good percentage of homes that have high levels of radon. I believe now it's about 1 in 11, 1 in 12, something like that. So radon it's on our mind. It's on a house-to-house kind of basis. You're buying a home here in New Jersey, spend a little extra money, get the house checked for radon. Well worth it, for sure. It's not that problematic a problem to fix. Another thing I'm looking at inside homes is mold. Insurance companies generally don't cover mold. Mold is sort of a hot button issue today. It's on my mind all the time, and I'm looking for any kind of mold in this house, either by smell or by sight. Part of a home inspection that I do, and I want to call out mold, even though it's not required. But I think it's doing a disservice to my client not to call out what I think is mold. I'm not going to walk past mold. The same thing, I'm not going to walk past pest activity, right? I don't have to check for rodents, but if I see evidence of rodents in a house, I'm going to call it out. I mean, that's just silly not to, right? I mean, your client's paying you good money to do a home inspection. We're going to give all of my knowledge, just not selective knowledge, right? It doesn't make any sense. So for sure that, I'm going to call out these things. So getting to be a longer video here, I just wanted to give you guys a flavor of what I think about, the things that are running through my mind, when I do a home inspection here in New Jersey. So I hope that helps a little. It might give you an idea of some of the things that a good New Jersey home inspector is going to look at. And it might give you an idea of sort of a little bit of our thought process. Certainly not everything was covered here, but those are some of the things that are really on top of my mind, sort of front burner type of stuff. When I'm pulling up to a house, I'm kind of going through this mental checklist about how I'm going to approach this particular home. And those are the things that enter my mind, doing this for a long time in terms of helping to protect my client. So there you have it. I'm John from LookSmart Home Inspections here in New Jersey, home inspector for 25 years, proudly serving most of New Jersey. If you have any questions, reach out. John Martino from LookSmart Home Inspections. Thank you for watching. I hope this helped. We'll see you next time.